A recent survey conducted by the American College Health Association found that 52% of college students reported feeling hopeless. It wasn't just feeling sadness or depression or anxiety. 52%, or the majority of college students, reported feeling hopeless. Each year since 2012, the United Nations publishes a study called the World Happiness Report. The report outlines things like the state of the world's happiness, causes of happiness and misery, and how governmental policies impact the well-being of people. The United States is ranked 18th on the list. Australia is ranked number 10. Canada is ranked number 7. Finland is ranked number 1. At the Ivy League university, Yale, the most popular course in its history. Now, this is a long history. This goes back into pre-Revolutionary War. In its history, the most popular course ever taught there is called Psych 157, or Psychology and the Good Life. It's a class that teaches students how to be happier, because they were realizing these bright Ivy League young people who have so much of an achievement in their minds to do more and accomplish more and create more. They were graduating without a clue as it relates to happiness. In church, we talk about joy more than happiness. And we've always said this, it's because joy flows from the inside. We think of joy being more spiritually sourced. Happiness is tied to the word happen, so we think of it as being externally sourced. We think it is less spiritual because we think it's feeling good on what happens around us, but that is not necessarily true. Now, it is true, the Bible does speak a lot about joy. In fact, one of the fruits of the Spirit is joy, love, joy, peace. These are fruits of the Spirit. But the Bible also says a lot about happiness, and often the word translated joy can just as easily from the original language be translated happiness. Acts 13:52 says this: because of the abundant presence of the Holy Spirit in their lives, talking about those followers of Jesus in the first century, the disciples were overflowing with happiness. I love 2 Corinthians 1:24. This is kind of where the whole series has been born from. It speaks to what we try to do here at the Village. Look at this scripture. It isn't that we're trying to control your faith. That's between you and God. But we are working with you for your happiness because you stand firm in your faith. At the Village, we have been saying this over the last year. We say we're here to get better so we can do better, so we can be better. Please don't misunderstand that word better. It's synonymous with the word healthy. We're here to get healthy so we can learn to do healthier things, so we can actually be healthier people. So in the spirit of 2 Corinthians 1:24, over the rest of the summer, we are going to be working with each other on this subject of happiness. Can we become happier people? Truthfully, happiness isn't different than other things in life. In life, when you want to get better at something, what do you need to do usually? Practice. You know who said it first? A skilled musician who knows you don't get there and play the way he plays by just saying, hey, I want to get there. You practice. You want to be a better cook? What do? Chef in the back would say there's a lot of practice involved. You want to develop a deeper sense of spirituality? You might practice yoga or meditation or devotional prayer and study. Those things might be very important. Doctors who want to facilitate healing, what do? They practice medicine. Did you know that applies to happiness as well? We are finding through all kinds of scientific research that there are specific things you can learn to do in life, and if you do them, your happiness is guaranteed to improve. Now, here's what I want you to get. If you don't do these things, then your happiness level, wherever it is, it's going to rock along about where it is. But it doesn't have to. I want us to do something this summer that I have never seen done in church, but I think it can be so helpful. And you don't have to participate. You can just come and listen and let it go in and out your ear, and that's totally fine. I get it. I get it. This is your choice, and there's no pressure. But if you want to get happier, over the next few weeks, I want you to engage, really engage in what we are trying to teach. The Bible says we have to be doers, not just hearers, right? We understand that. This is not just listening to a lecture and saying, well, that was really nice. No, we're going to have to put some things into practice. But if we do, there's a payoff. Now, in order to make it fun and compelling, we've added a page to the Village website. Some of you have never been to the website. We have a beautiful website called thevillageatlanta.com. Thevillageatlanta.com. We've added a page, and we're calling it the Village Happiness Project. The Village Happiness Project, and you can find that page at thevillageatlanta.com/happy. Now, I hope y'all can remember this. If not, can we take a picture? Everybody take a picture of the screen. Y'all want to pull your phones out and take a picture? Because I want you to be able to keep up with this, all right? It's going to include all the videos of all the talks we're going to do on happiness. It's going to include audio downloads for those of you who like to listen as you're driving to work. It's going to include the notes from all the talks. It also is going to include other resources that are going to help you develop your personal happiness practice. Your personal happiness practice. Now, if you go there when today's talk is completed, when you get home, you're going to find some things. You're going to find the notes from this talk. You're going to find a link, and this is important, to a scientifically validated psychological test that will help you find your baseline of where your happiness level is right now. You also will find links to read more about the science of happiness and well-being for those of you who are just a little bit more curious. Now, some of you, it's going to be deeper than you would like to go, but it's there if you would like it. Again, you don't have to do any of this, but if you want to be better at happiness, I encourage you to make a decision to take some action. Let me tell you about this test, the Authentic Happiness Inventory or test. It was developed by Christopher Peterson at the University of Michigan. It's a quick test. I think it's 24 questions. And your score becomes a baseline. It's your level of happiness at the beginning of this happiness journey. I took the test, 5 is the top. 5 is the very top. I took the test this week and my score was 3.46, which means nothing. It just means that a month from now, when I take it again, I hope it is better than 3.46. In a few weeks, when we finish this series, I'm going to encourage all of you to take this test a second time so you can compare your score to see if you've grown happier as you've worked to develop your happiness practice. Now, this is scary for me, I'll be honest with you, because I'm pouring a whole bunch into this. And if you take your test and then you take it again and nothing happened, don't tell me that nothing happened, all right? Just please do not tell me nothing happened. If you go the other way, then you need to find another church for sure. You need to just find somewhere else. I am hoping, I am praying that you're going to say, Ray, I started here, wherever here is, and I've really been putting into practice what you've been saying, and at the end of the summer, it's moved to here, and I'm on my way. That's what I really hope is going to happen. Very often in life, we develop fallacies about why things are the way that they are. Fallacies are things we think are reasonably true, but they turn out to not be tested. So in fact, often fallacies are not true at all. There are a number of things many of us think are true about how happiness works. I have thought many of these things much of my life. For example, if I just had this, I'd be happy. Or if I just didn't have this, I'd be happy. Or if I just was like this, or if I wasn't like this, or if I could achieve this, or if I could overcome this, then I would be happy. Imagine with me waking up this morning before you came to church, and while you're getting your coffee, the phone rang, and someone with a funny accent's on the other line, and you find out it's the King of Sweden, and it's for real. And the King of Sweden says, you have just been awarded a Nobel Prize, and you get off the phone, and you can't believe it. I would rush to Jane and say, I've won a Nobel Prize. I don't even know what this is about, but we would quickly Google and see, what does this mean? And we would find with the Nobel Prize, we get $1 million. If you verified it, knowing you're going to get $1 million, how do you think you'd feel the rest of the morning? Happy, happy, happy. We'd be happy. How long do you think the feeling of happiness would last? long time. It seems it would last a long time. Now let's go back to the beginning. You're drinking coffee this morning, the phone rings, and on the line, it's your doctor. She tells you she's very sorry, but you have a disease, and it's very serious. It's survivable, but it will require drastic changes in your lifestyle. She wants you to come in and discuss implications that will apply the rest of your life. How do you think you would feel? Scared or sad for sure. Here's the point. We have expectations that good things will make us happy, and we think that happiness will run a long time, and bad things will make us unhappy. And we make choices every few minutes based on those personal ideas and misconceptions about happiness. For example, am I going to watch Netflix tonight, or am I going to scroll Facebook? Which one is going to make me happy? Am I going to cook breakfast tomorrow morning, or am I going to go to Waffle House? Which one will make me happier? Am I going to date to find someone to marry, or am I going to learn to be satisfied being single? Which one is going to make me happy? Stay with me. Social scientists call this kind of conscious or unconscious decision-making affective forecasting. We decide to act based on assumptions about how the action will affect us. Often we are right. Often we're wrong. Here's the very first thing to learn about the science of happiness and developing a practice of happiness. And this is what happiness is here it is, happiness has almost nothing to do with what happens to us. Think that through. Happiness has almost nothing to do with what happens to us. Without focusing on your happiness, by having a happiness practice, your happiness levels will remain fairly consistent through your whole life. Now, this is going to be helpful if you'll stay with me. Whether you get a phone call informing you that you won $1 million or that you have a life-changing disease, your happiness spike will be temporary, but your happiness level for all of us, minus a happiness practice, is going to be fairly consistent. Here's the point. Sonia Yubamersky is a psychologist at the University of California, and she studies happiness. She says roughly 50% of happiness, your happiness, roughly 50% of it is determined by your DNA. That's why happiness remains fairly consistent your whole life. From birth to death, people are fairly the same level of happiness as when they began. There's a fancy word for it. It's called homeostasis, and it's the tendency toward a relative stable equilibrium. The idea is you will level out. Let me show you this. Can we put up here, if you start at birth and you just chart your life, you may get happier as you fall in love, but then when the love goes away, you go down. When you get sick, it goes down. But see how it kind of levels off each time you have a birth? But it always levels off because 50% of your happiness is preset in your DNA. Some people are naturally happier people than others. Some people are naturally a little more melancholy than others. You might have a happy experience, you win the $1 million, but quickly it comes right back down to the leveled place. You might get a bad call concerning disease, it goes down, but it comes right back. 50%, you cannot do anything about that. So understand, that's not what we're talking about. With the passage of time, happiness levels out. 50% DNA, it's out of your control. 10% is determined by life circumstances that also may be out of your control. A good friend of mine yesterday, editor of a newspaper in Alabama, sitting at a stop sign, was plowed into at 80 miles an hour. He is in the most critical of conditions right now in Alabama. He's on life support. It's not certain whether he's going to live, and if he does live, there's no idea at this state how affected he is going to be. His daughters, grown daughters, and his wife are struggling right now. They're in that 10% space. When bad things happen to you, it affects you. It does. But what I want you to get is 50% you can't do anything about. 10% happens to all of us. That just happens. But then there's 40% that you can control. 40% of what makes up happiness, you get to determine. Are you going to put into practice things that really work towards a more happy life? Or are you going to ignore it and just live at whatever natural level you're at? The other 40% is determined by your thoughts, your actions, your attitudes. Now, we do run into a huge problem here. Without a thought-out happiness practice, we are remarkably bad at understanding on our own how to increase happiness. We think we know. Our brains are naturally terrible at what we were talking about earlier. We have all kinds of misconceptions about what will make us happy, and it turns out the things most of us believe will make us happy have very little impact on true happiness. Some of the most typical beliefs that turn out to be wrong are this. How many of you, just raise your hand, have believed if I had a better job with better pay, I'd be happier? Don't all of us think that? Now, come on, y'all raise your hand if y'all have ever thought that. Am I the only guy that has thought that back when I was, if I could have a better job, better pay, I'd be happier? Research shows people who make less than $30,000 a year believe they'd be happier if they made 50. I get it. People who make 100,000 believe they'd be happier if they made 250,000. I get it. The more we have, the more we imagine we need. But there's an important point to be made here. None of this applies unless you're getting your basic needs met. In other words, if you don't have clean water, basic health care, sufficient food, and adequate shelter, more money really does make you happier because you are able to get those basic things. But then happiness levels have been shown to increase in the United States up until making $75,000 a year. It really does give you a little bump up to $75,000 a year, but at $75,000 a year, then it is just tiny little incremental advantages up to $150,000 a year. And all the research I have ever read says after about $150,000, there's actually a diminishing return on how happy money can make you. So those of us that have thought, man, if I just had $1 million, it wouldn't make us more happy. It wouldn't. In the words of rapper and philosopher, the notorious B.I.G., he said, I don't know what they want from me. It's like the more money we come across, the more problems we see. That's why being crazy rich doesn't make us truly happy. More money means more problems. Another false belief about happiness is known as the arrival fallacy. The arrival fallacy, or stated another way, I'm going to be happy as soon as I fill in the blank. Deep down, we've all seen this play out. We set a goal of getting a better job, or getting a new house, or getting a new car, or getting down to that ideal weight. And when we achieve the goal or get the thing, we get a temporary bump in our happiness levels, that's for sure. But after a few days, when the realities of life go back into play, that bump in happiness is gone. How many couples have I seen who have just thought if they could just move to a different place? Or how many people have thought if I could just get that better job, and they found out it was only temporary? Tal Ben-Shahar is a Harvard professor, and in researching this arrival fallacy, he found this: attaining lasting happiness requires that we, here it is, enjoy the journey on our way toward a destination that we think is valuable. It's the journey that's beautiful, not the destination. It's not getting to this certain place. It's the steps along the way that we go through on the journey together. Happiness is not about making it to the peak of the mountain, nor is it about climbing aimlessly around the mountain. Happiness is the experience of climbing toward the peak. It is the journey. Aren't y'all glad you're in here and not out there right now? This is very good. Much happier. We all are happier. A third fallacy: I'll be happy if I had awesome stuff, true love, and a perfect body. How many of you thought that? How many? We've all think that, right? In 1976, researchers asked 12,000 freshmen in universities around the country a series of questions about how they thought about having things, materialistic attitudes, their desire to acquire stuff, awesome stuff, but still stuff. 20 years later, they went back and followed up with those former students to ask questions about life satisfaction. And I'm sure just based on your own life experiences, you can guess the results. Students who expressed desires to have more things were less satisfied 20 years later, whether or not they succeeded in getting those things or not. Those students also reported more mental health disorders than the former students who focused less on material things. So having stuff, we think that's the answer. God, if I could just get the bigger TV, if I could just get the next iPhone, if I could just get the next thing. And we find that it's a temporary bump, but doesn't make us really happy. According to Dr. Yuba Mirsky, we talked about a few moments ago, what we believe would make a huge difference in our lives, actually, according to scientific research, makes only a small difference. while we overlook the true sources of personal happiness and well-being. What did Jesus say? You blind guide, you strain at a gnat, but you swallow a camel. You think you know, and what you are majoring on is so minor, and what you are treating as minor is so big. We imagine more money, a better job, fewer health problems, a better looking partner, a new car, or becoming famous will make us happy, but those things only ever affect happiness for a moment. And over time, we spring back to our genetic, consistent level of happiness. So, over the next few weeks, we're going to work on actively developing what we're going to call a happiness practice. That's going to be a real big deal. We're going to go deep in understanding, not today, today's just an introduction, but we're going to go deep in understanding specific things we can control that make lasting differences in our happiness. Today we talked about the problem we all tend to share. We all want to be happy, but the problem is what we think will make us happy isn't what actually makes anybody happy. A better job won't do it. After our basic needs are covered, more money won't make us happier. Arriving at or achieving a goal won't make us any happier. Having better stuff won't make us happier. A more perfect partner won't make us happier. A perfect body won't make us happier. As we go deeper these next few weeks, we're going to learn about thoughts, actions, and attitudes that can permanently shift our happiness trajectory from a straight line to one that really has tilt, that really goes up. Now, will you be as happy as somebody else? That's not the question. What do we have? 50%. It's our normal, natural DNA, right? So some people are by nature happier people. But I can tell you this, you have responsibility for 40%. You can sure tilt that 40% up if you put these things into practice. Now, I don't want to leave you here this morning only hearing about the problem. I did want to set this up in that way for us to go deeper these next weeks. I want to leave you with 5 quick things. We'll explore these a little more in detail these next weeks, but these are 5 things that really will help your happiness quotient go up. So if you just want to get these, I'm not going to go into detail at all, but these are 5 things that will be helpful for you. First is this: happy people seem to devote a lot more time to people they love. Happy people devote time to people they love. Last night, Jane and I stopped at my dad's house after going to Joe's party, and we were planning just to stay there for just a moment, but something just felt like it'd be neat to go into Atlanta for dinner. Just kind of spur of the moment. They're way in Stockbridge, but we did. We went into Atlanta. We went to a really cool Italian place, and we're able to bring a bottle of wine, and we're able to just sit there, and we're able to talk, and the whole day just became even more beautiful because we were with people that we love. And I don't know who that is for you, but when you can spend time with people you love, take advantage of that. Do that. Prioritize that over anything else. It is important. And it's so sad, but there'll be times I'll think through a week and I'll think, I've been so busy and I've not spent time with people that I dearly love. Don't make that mistake. Another thing to think about is happy people practice gratitude. In other words, they are grateful for everything. My mother-in-law, whom I adore, is 88 years old. She is so grateful. If Jane makes her dinner, it's the best dinner she's ever tasted. If we go out somewhere, it's the best restaurant. If we have a little community gathering, she says, I think that was the best party I've ever been to. She's not making any of this stuff up. She believes it because she is just filled with gratitude. That's how you live to be 88 and wanting to live to 100, because you just have that sense of everything. This is so beautiful. Golly, that y'all did this is so precious. Now, some people go through life and they don't see those things. We want to help you over the next week see those things you can be grateful for. Third thing, happy people practice optimism. They practice it. You can look at a cup half full or look at a cup half empty. You can. What did I read this week? Or you can just get you a smaller cup and pour it in and drink. Whatever. It's your perception. It's your perception. And so you don't have to always lean towards the negative or pessimistic. You can practice optimism. Happy people, and this surprised me, but all the research bears this out, if they are able, happy people are physically active. In other words, probably sitting in the reclining chair all day is not serving you well. Laying on the sofa all day is probably not serving you well. We're going to talk about that. And then finally, happy people savor. I love that word. Happy people savor life, and they live in the present moment. Every day is the day that they focus on today. Today, and they savor everything about it. Well, this afternoon, I want you to go home, and at your leisure, please go to the website and begin to look over the materials. Take that test and record that number. I put it in my notes app on my phone, 3.46. That's where I start on the happiness journey, 3.46. My belief is in a month or so, I'll take the test again, and it's going to be up, because I'm going to put into practice the things we're going to be talking about. I know it's summer. I know some of you are going to miss maybe a Sunday because of vacation, but I want you to use the resources we're putting up on the website. I want you to go back and watch the talks if you have to miss one, and I want you to share this with friends on Facebook and on Twitter. I would love for other people to go on this journey with us. Let me say this. I know just on a very natural level, listening to the news each day, it is easy to get depressed. It is easy to find yourself feeling a little bit hopeless. But can I tell you something? We don't have to let that suck us down. We can combat that by doing personal practices that make us focus on those things that are good, pure, loving, and that make us happier. Would you bow your heads?